I'm going to speak as the ranking member of the Senate Rules Committee. And I'm going to speak in regards to the rules changes that have occurred today. Under the rules of this body, it takes 67 votes to end debate on a rules change. As a continuing body, our rules carry on from one Congress to the next, or at least they used to, and can only be changed pursuant to these rules. Our rules have always ensured a voice for the minority in this body. Unlike the House, where I served, where a simple majority has the power to impose a rule change at any time in the Senate, the minority has always been protected. Here, the rules protect the minority and cannot be changed without their consent. Unless, of course, the majority decides it wants to break the rules to change the rules. I am saddened that that is what happened today. Madam President, the Washington Post reported the other day that President Obama's approval rating has hit a record low. His disapproval rating has hit a record high, the worst of his presidency. This is obviously the result of the disastrous rollout of Obamacare, which has caused Americans to question both the president's trustworthiness and his basic competence. Now, you would think in light of these developments that my friends, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle might be reconsidering the wisdom of some of their past decisions. You would hope it would occur to them that maybe it was a mistake to pass the health care reform bill on a straight party line vote. I'm one of the few that voted no in the Health Committee, no in the Finance Committee, and no on the Senate floor on the Christmas Eve night. You might expect them to have some doubts about the competence of this administration, as most Americans clearly do on this particular issue especially, and a lot of other regulations. And if it dawned on them that maybe now be the right time to reassert congressional authority to rein in and redirect the administration, the executive, if you will, you would think they would be using the power of this Senate to move the administration in a different direction. I'm sorry to say that has not happened. Instead, in the face of the obvious failures of this president and his plummeting approval ratings, the majority has decided it would be a really good idea to give him more power. That's right, the majority thinks our biggest problem is that the president just can't do whatever he wants to do, and we should change our rules to allow him to do that. That's incredible. The majority has permanently undermined this body, robbed it of a vital tool to check the untrammeled authority of this or any other president, so this sinking ship of an administration can make whatever appointments it wants. What a tragedy. You know, Madam President, in Kansas, when you walk old ghost towns, you will see buildings where nothing remains but the facade. Literally, the entire building is gone, and all that is left is the facade. To prevent that facade from collapsing, you may see beams really propping it up. In recent weeks, this administration has been exposed as a facade. It still looks nice at first glance. The slick campaign-style appearances go on as usual, but when you look behind it, you see that there is nothing there. It cannot perform the most basic tasks. It cannot even fulfill the responsibilities it has assigned to itself. It is collapsing. So now we, the Senate, are going to prop it up. The United States Senate, the world's greatest deliberative body, has been reduced to a prop. We have reduced ourselves to rubber stamps, forfeiting our historical and constitutional authority to subject presidential appointments to advice and consent so this administration can do whatever it wants. Again, what a tragedy. Never has so much been given for so little. We have permanently undermined this body for what? So this president can appoint a few more judges and stack the D.C. Circuit Court, who oversees the constitutionality of federal regulations. Yes, Obamacare regulations, IRS regulations, EPA regulations, all of the regulations that come like a waterfall over basically every economic sector that we have. Now, this is unbelievable. What happened today will surely lead to complete control of this institution by the majority. I hope not, but that is what has happened in the past, more especially in the House. Do not listen to those who would seek to minimize the importance of what has been done here. The claim that what they have done is limited, applying only to executive nominations, misses the point. The change itself is less important than the manner in which it was opposed. Once you assume the power to write new rules with a simple majority vote, to ignore the existing rules that require a supermajority to achieve such a change, you have put us on a path that will surely lead to total control of this body by the majority. Before today, there was only one House of Congress where the majority has total control. Now there are two. We have become the House. By its action today, the majority has ensured for many years to come that many will not have any rights beyond those which the majority is willing to grant. When he was in the minority, our current majority leader recognized this himself. In his book, The Good Fight, Senator Reid wrote about the battle over the nuclear option back in 2005. This is what he wrote. Once you open that Pandora's box, it was just a matter of time before a Senate leader who couldn't get his way on something moved to eliminate the filibuster for regular business as well. And that, simply put, would be the end of the Senate. I repeat, the end of the United States Senate. Senator Reid further wrote, there will come a time when we will all be gone, and the institutions that we now serve will be run by men and women not yet living. And those institutions will either function well because we've taken care of them, or they will be in disarray and someone else's problem to solve. He described the nuclear option this way then. In a fit of partisan fury, they were trying to blow up the Senate. Senate rules can only be changed by a 2/3 vote of the Senate, or 67 senators. The Republicans were going to do it illegally with a simple majority, or 51. Future generations be damned. End of quote. If only today the majority leader had recalled his own words. Instead, by his own hand, he has brought on the end of the United States Senate as we know it. Instead of taking care of this institution, he will leave it in disarray. Future generations be damned. Our former parliamentarian, Bob Dove, and Richard Ehrenberg, a professor and one-time aide to former Majority Leader George Mitchell, wrote a book on this subject called Defending the Filibuster. This is what they said. If a 51-vote majority is empowered to rewrite the Senate rules, the day will come, as it did in the House of Representatives, when a majority will construct rules that give it near absolute control over amendments and debate. And there is no going back from that. No majority in the House of Representatives has or ever will voluntarily relinquish that power in order to give the minority a greater voice in crafting legislation. Do not be fooled by those who would try to minimize the impact of what happened today. The rule change itself, again, is less important in the manner in which it was imposed. Now that the majority has decided it can set the rules, there is no limit to what it or any future majority might do in the future. There are no constraints. The majority claims these changes are necessary to make the Senate function. If it decides further changes are needed, it will make them. The minority will have no voice, no say, no power. That has never been the case in the Senate, never until now. It saddens me that we have come to this point. It saddens me that the members on the other side of the aisle who should know better have taken this course. We have done permanent damage to this institution and set a precedent that will surely allow future majorities to further restrict the rights of the minority. That is not a threat, it is just a fact. We have weakened this body permanently, undermined it for the sake of incompetent administration. What a tragedy. This is a sad, sad day, Madam President. When the future generations we have damned by today's actions look back and wonder why are things in such disarray? When did it go wrong? When the demise of the Senate began? The answer will be today, November 21, 2013. I yield back, Madam President.